Hello and welcome to Express Sports Podcast. You're listening to Game Time. Me, Mihir Vasavda and Vinayakk are here as always. Joining us is our go-to guy for all things cricket, Venkata Krishna, joining us all the way from Chennai. And well, since I already mentioned that he's our go-to guy for all things cricket, I think you guys would have had a fair idea what we're going to talk about today. But chances are that by the time that you listen to this episode, the fourth test between India and England of the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy would have already been over or on the verge of getting over. So we thought we'll narrow down our focus and talk about something, it's a mixture of both bravado and also stupidity, I guess. Maybe we'll discuss that as the episode progresses, but we'll be talking about Rishabh Pant because, he has been the biggest talking point of the series so far. The 4 test matches, Pant with his actions, with his words has really defined the series if I were to kind of stick my neck out. Of course, there have been many other performances, but for me, this series has been about Pant and the way he's really stood up to the occasion. So let's dive straight in. Vinayak, I think the first sign that we thought that Pant will walk out to bat was when the BCCI kind of tweeted at around 11:45 or something like that he'll bat as per the team's requirements. Now, they did say that he might not play any further role in the series behind the stumps as Dhruv Jurel came on as the substitute keeper. But what was your reaction when you read that and you saw Pant eventually walk out? And before you say that, why don't you also kind of explain what happened to Pant and why this became such a big deal?
I mean, here, yeah, that is a difficult thing to do, to explain what Rishabh Pant does, right? By definition, I think that is a little bit of a tricky thing to do. It's a very Rishabh Pant thing to do, right? The innings was going all right. India were in control after being asked to bat first again. And then suddenly Rishabh Pant decides to play the reverse to the pacer. So obviously, this is not the first time he's done it. So, I mean, that it came in the middle of a fairly good spell for India doesn't really make it a surprise because, I mean, this is what Rishabh Pant does, right? I mean, Anderson, he's done this to James Anderson. I mean, he's done it multiple times, attempted multiple times. Sometimes it's clicked, sometimes it's not. He did it, I think, earlier this year at the BGT as well. Yeah, so for the fact that he attempted the stroke itself is not a surprise. But with Rishabh Pant, it's always a question of, why? Right? I mean, was that needed? It's part of the package that he does something like this, and you have to take the good along with the not so expected, not so logical things that he pulls off. Obviously, he's had a fantastic series so far with the bat. And then the interesting thing was it was a near Yorker that he tried to play this. So logically speaking, ill-advised shot selection. There is no two ways about that. I don't think he read the right delivery to pick that shot. I think Venkat can maybe talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, so he tried that shot. There was a big LPW appeal and he was already starting to hobble. Replays showed that he was not out, LPW, but out became a much bigger word surrounding Rishabh Pant soon after, because once the shoe came off, you could see that near the toe region, it was already starting to swell up quite badly, like almost like a squash ball or something like that, right? And it looked pretty bad right away. He couldn't even put his foot on the ground, and he had to be carted off on that little golf buggy thingy that they had at the stadium. You knew right then and there that it was not going to be good news. Maybe he survived that LPW appeal, but it didn't look for him. I think Venkat immediately pinged on the series. I think he's out for the series, right? And as it turned out, it was a fractured.
Yeah. But Vinayak, do you mean to say that the crazy ball that Gilchrist had under his gloves was suddenly inside Pant's boots?
Yeah. Of all the things that we've compared Rishabh Pant and Adam Gilchrist with, I don't think this was the one that Indian fans needed, right? So, yeah. The logic of it all is probably what we'll discuss. But yeah, one of those typical Rishabh Pant moments that ended up being quite costly in the end.
Yeah, so next morning, right, this happened on the first day of this test match. So the second day, like I said earlier, around 11:45 British time, BCCI sent out a message on social media that, look, he'll not be keeping wickets, but he might bat as per the team's requirements. And then shortly after, he was in his whites in the dressing room balcony and was there, I think, around half an hour or so later after Shardul Thakur was dismissed. And I was watching the match with my father. and his first reaction was, टीम का कोई डॉक्टर वॉक्टर नहीं है क्या जो इनको मना करता है खेलने के लिए? So he thought, Pant was absolutely crazy. Venkat, do you think it was crazy? I mean, we always talk about this fine line between genius and madmen, right? What was he that time?
Look, I don't know whether it's a bravado or like it was like too costly. See, I think the best judge in this case is Rishabh Pant. He would have known for sure that extent of injury. He would know that, okay, listen, I'm going to be out for 6 weeks. At least it's a fracture. If it was a ligament tear and stuff, I don't think he would have like taken the decision to walk out and bat, because ligament tear, it can like get worse and it can like the injury can get aggravated. With fracture is fracture, it's just a broken bone, like whatever it is, you're going to be out, so you're just going to sit in home with your legs up. So I think that's where Pant would have thought, okay, like if I may like come and score even like 40 runs extra, that would have been a major difference for India, because this series you've all been like, we've been seeing like two fascinating contests. It's been like what Rishabh Pant promised with the bat. He's been like thrilling us with his game and stuff. So he would have thought, okay, like why not some 30-40 runs when the team was like, it's not the team was in a very good situation. If the team was batting, I mean, had a good score, maybe things would have worked differently. But India really needed some runs. I think they would have checked with Pant, okay, listen, are you going to bat? And Pant would have said like, okay, might as well come and like do it before I fly back home. So that's what would have happened. So I wouldn't call it not a wise decision as such, but it was just a spontaneous call. It would have been, let me come and just check what it is going to be. See, if now in the second innings, if India, by the looks of it, I'm more listening to the fact that India is going to chase a lot of runs over here. So if that happens, and if India are in dire straits, I don't see Pant actually coming out to bat in the second innings. If it is a close outing, then things could change. But if it is like say 500 run target or 400 run target, and I don't see Pant coming and like playing this sort of an innings. And speaking of this such instance, it's like this is the sort of a thing that also send a message or across, not just to the opposition but to the dressing room as well. We have seen in the series like Indian batsmen not put price on their wicket at times, and we have seen how, especially closer to the lunch, we have lost momentum and it has like completely changed the course of the game. And probably this just will send the message to the other youngsters: listen, no matter what, come, let's get the job done. I think it was Pant would have thought, okay, like he doesn't come across that sort of a fellow like Kohli or some like say even Rohit, who did it, I think in a ODI against Bangladesh, I believe, right? He did it a couple of years back, so with a hamstring injury or whatever. So he would have done, Rohit had done it, but for Pant to do it, it just sends a message to the other youngsters as well. Listen, yes, I can play some audacious shots and stuff, but I'm still the senior pro and I know how to like lead from the front when it comes to dire situations. Pant would have been like really, will hardly say head back home knowing that, okay, yes, given it all.
I do wonder though, how that conversation in the dressing room would have gone. Like, I don't know if how it works. If Shubman Gill would have reached out to Pant and asked that, hey, can you just go out and bat? It would have been a very awkward conversation. And if it was like that, I don't know how Pant would have reacted. I mean, it's just a scenario that I'm trying to imagine how it would have been in the dressing room. But yeah, it is kind of fascinating to kind of understand what goes on inside the brain of a player like him when something like this happens. But also, it has given a rise to a bigger debate, right, Vinayak? And that's about cricket's reluctance to have substitutes. And it beats me that why a sport like cricket would completely be against the idea of having subs. And I would go as far as saying that, cricket should have legit subs like football. If something goes wrong mid-match, you should have the power to kind of change a player and course correct and add that dimension. But absolutely for something like this, and I'm not saying it because, India was at the receiving end and this happened to Pant, but just as plain simple logic, this is something that maybe cricket should look at.
Yeah, that is an interesting, that's something that I've been thinking about for a long, long time, actually. Just before we get into that, I think we obviously don't know what the conversation was that led to Rishabh Pant coming out to bat, but I'm like Venkat hinted there, I think it was probably his call that, he thought he could, like with an injection or with a painkiller, whatever he had to take, he could manage the pain and he could run also between the wickets, as in he didn't run, but he jogged between the wickets. So obviously it wasn't impossible for him to move. So in that sense, maybe that was his call. Okay, so I can move, so let me do this. Yeah, for someone who's gone through much worse off the field recently, I guess that is what Pant is. Rishabh Pant is a little bit of that guy who in his head is seen a lot worse. So maybe that played a part in this. We don't know. Maybe we'll get to know later. But I just hope he didn't do too much damage. It was brave, but I mean, if he ended up doing worse to his foot, then it would have probably been another word that we've heard with Rishabh Pant in the recent past. But yeah, I mean, either way, it was like you said at the start, right? It is one of those crazy things that only Rishabh Pant could probably do on the cricket field. The substitute part, it's interesting, right? So, like for us, like we watch a lot of football, watch a lot of hockey, even basketball for that matter. The way cricket is a little different there is because in basketball you have rolling subs, in hockey you have rolling subs. You have players who are performing a particular role, like a forward replaces a forward. He runs for like maybe 10 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever tries to do. And then he goes off. The other guy comes and runs for 8 minutes, tries to do what he does. In cricket, it's a little difficult to implement, right? I mean, if you want replacing a bowler who has bowled 5 overs, he's going to come and bowl. I mean, can he bowl just 5 more overs? Does he bowl 10 overs? These things. So it's in cricket, there is like this defined number of contributions a particular player can make. And it's not like a team, it's a very individualistic team sport, right? So it becomes a little complicated there. But the one thing that I'm fairly clear in my mind is, in this case, like you said, if a player gets injured and can show, okay, so here's my x-ray, I have a broken bone, right? That is a very simple scenario for me. If that happens, if there is a common medic, or even, I mean, hospital x-ray is not going to be faked, right? So there is a ligament tear in a test match, obviously. Maybe in T20s, T20s, we already seen impact players and things like that. But in a test match for 5 days, if a player gets injured on the first day and he can just show a medical evidence saying, my hamstring is torn, my knee ACL is gone, I have a fractured finger, fractured foot, then a pre-nominated substitute is very obvious to me, right? I mean, this is something that we already seen concussion subs in place, and there is also new modifications coming in to make sure that the concussion sub is not exploited. And this seems very simple, straightforward to me. Like in this case, in such cases, it has to happen. There's no sense in playing a 5-day match with a guy, with one person who happened to break something on the field, can't take part, and the team is disadvantaged because of that. That it's very logically illogical to me.
No, but even I'd like to hear Venkat's view, but before I bring him in, the other part that you said, right? Cricket having very defined contributions for every player. Now, I feel that if, say, for example, if, Team X has a player who's already bowled, say, 7 out of 10 overs, I'm talking about ODIs here, or if you're talking about T20s, then 3 out of the 4 overs quota. If it's the bowler who is coming on as a substitute, then he bowls the remaining 1 over. Or the team can have the liberty to just bring in a batsman. I'm okay with that. Anyway, you have the impact player in T20s right now. And the same goes in test matches. If, it's okay if a captain on the first morning of a 5-day match has messed up on a team selection on the basis of the conditions he saw that day, and something totally different is on the 4th day, the conditions have completely changed. I think it'll be nice to have that liberty to change a player based on those conditions. I mean, I know the test match holder traditionalists will scoff at that, but I think it's fine. I mean, every other sport is embracing this aspect of team games, and I don't see any reason why cricket should not do it. Venkat?
I'm here. I'm like, yeah, I was coughing when you said that actually. So I'm okay with what Vinayak said, right? Like, I'm just not okay. I'm completely agree with Vinayak in the sense like cricket needs to allow substitution in case of impact injuries. Yes, internal, I can understand that players could be carrying niggles and stuff, and then it could be related to fitness and stuff, especially when it's a hamstring and ligament tears. But with regards to like when you get external injuries like fracture or like even a knock that like kind of gives you a sprain or whatever, concussion, I think cricket needs to wake up and realize that, okay, listen, one team is, if something happens even in the first over of a game, it leaves a team extremely at a disadvantage of playing with 10 against 11. So you need to have a balance. Cricket is all about like providing balance. Although they say it is like a balance between bat and ball, that it doesn't exist. So at least to show the world, okay, there is some sort of a balance. I think cricket should high time they bring in the substitution protocols. And as we speak, I think there is already some discussion happening within the cricket committee of the ICC where the likes of VVS Lakshman are around. If I'm not wrong, they have encouraged some of the member boards to try out the substitution in the domestic cricket. So let's see how it goes, because at least from my understanding, it's like just like the concussion protocols, we are going to have captains have to like hand out a list of substitutes who are like nominated for each slot, be it like a batsman, be it a wicketkeeper, or for an all-rounder and for a spinner or a pacer. I think you're supposed to name substitutes for each of these roles. So if anybody gets injured or whatever, they can like come in. Like similarly, I believe that similar arrangement can be put in place for like external injuries as well. it will allow teams. I don't think teams will per se like misuse it. See, we have seen there have been debates when India brought in a Yuzvendra Chahal instead of Ravindra Jadeja in a T20 game in Australia and stuff like that. With that, there is a lot of doubt over there, like as to how teams use it, because it's completely up to the match referee to allow a player a replacement that if we go by concussion protocols. But with when you list out the substitution well in advance, there's not much doubt. You can just say like, okay, this player is injured. If a batsman is injured, okay, a batsman comes in. Now, even a wicket keeper can come and just play as a batsman, not keep a wicket. That's also could be allowed. So there are like a lot of options in front of the ICC. It's just they have to be a little more proactive, I believe, because at the end of the day, you need players competing with each other. If there is like there could come a situation where a key player could get injured in a World Cup final, then what happens then? Your team will play with 10 versus 11 in a World Cup final. So I don't think that that sort of a thing we should look at it. But high time they give the substitution for each and everything, because we have seen players also. We forget that we had this discussion just a little while earlier as to whether Pant was like gonna like doing a stupid thing of by coming walking out injured and batting. See, players they're all ultra competitive. They like to, even if they are physically the body's not responding, their mind might be responding. They will like to fight it out. We have seen Hanuma Vihari come out and bat left-handed with a fractured wrist. In domestic cricket, you can like there can be like a lot of people could question it like, okay, this is like all for the optics and stuff, but there are players who do it regular basis even in domestic front. Last season, Baba Aparajit played with a broken hand and with an injured hamstring as well. So all of these things happen. We keep seeing it in domestic cricket, but when it comes to international cricket, a lot of people are watching. It gets spoken about a lot. So we are seeing Graham Smith walk out with a broken hand and batting and getting bowled out in Australia. We have seen Anil Kumble bowl with a broken jaw. So we have a lot of instances. So I think cricket just has to like realize we have to be smarter in how we manage the resources. We need to protect the safety of the players as well. At the same time, ensure the game doesn't get compromised. There should be a balance onto the field.
I mean, I'll just kind of again go back to pushing you on that bit about having overall substitutions. And Vinayak, I'm keen to know what you think about it as well. I mean, we see it in, say, for example, football, where substitutions are quite liberal in terms of how they're used. But we also see, for example, many occasions where a manager takes off a defender, brings on a striker when they're in need of a goal. And those are extremely strategic decisions because one change affects the entire field of play and how a team shapes, how they pass, everything. So substitutes too are extremely strategic when you think of it. And I'm sure it will be the same in cricket. I mean, it won't be so straightforward that if, in a test match, at the end of the first innings, if you replace a bowler and bring on a batsman, that's going to have a lasting impact for the remainder of the test match. So it will require a lot of thinking from the coach and the captain when they bring on a substitute, especially in test matches. I don't think it might have similar impact in T20s. I'm talking specifically about test matches though.
Yeah, so that is the thing that actually, I go both ways on that whenever I think about this substitution topic in cricket. I get the fact that, like Venkat said, you don't want to, even selection is part of getting things right? Like, I think you mentioned this earlier in the podcast. On day one, you make a decision, and on day four, the conditions are completely different. So you want to bring in another player who would be better suited for day four conditions. But that is also part of the challenge in cricket. Like, for a 5-day, Test cricket is also something that is unlike any other sport or discipline that we follow that goes on for 5 days. Things change so much, and you get one chance to get it right, and then you have to push through with that for 5 days. So that aspect is still there. I'm not sure if I want to compromise that. But, it does bring in a fresh tactical element, without a doubt. Maybe 3-4 years of playing with that, then it becomes normal because, no one thinks about substitutions in football as, why? Everyone should play 90 minutes. You should be able to run for 90 minutes. That's what the sport is. No one says that anymore, right? It's just ingrained as part of the aspect of watching football or hockey or whatever. Like, it's just part of it. It's not a new thing when a substitute comes on. Yeah, so that is a little different with cricket. I still think injury substitute should be allowed, but maybe not tactical, because we've seen it makes a little predictable for me. In IPL, at least, the impact player, it just, it takes away a lot of tactical elements. You just can go bang, bang, bang. You have this endless batting depth that has become norm now, and you have enough bowling options also. So the aspect of getting that 11, the balance right, and making sure that you make it like an even contest between 11 and 11, it's somewhat lost in the IPL because of the impact player rule. I'm not a big fan of that. So yeah, I don't know how substitutes will work in that case as a tactical element. But yeah, I mean, if we start seeing more of it and it's makes the game even more rewarding, then why not? But yeah, I don't know if we are there yet. But yeah, my thought is that we probably need a little more analysis of how that would impact a game. And if they're trialing that in first class cricket, I don't think it's still like a tactical thing that they're trialing in first class cricket. It's just concussion and injuries and all that. So yeah, maybe that's the first step we take before we get to where hockey and football is. Who knows? 10 years down the line, if test cricket is still there.
Also, if I may add, like even picking the right 11 at the toss is also tactical, I believe. That's where your real tactical acumen gets tested. Like you pick a 11 that will like give you the rewards for over the 5 days across changing conditions, overhead challenges, or when the pitch changes condition. It's characteristics. I think that's where the challenge comes as a captain, right? You pick a 11 for all 5 days. Now, if you take that away, you're saying like, okay, listen, these captains are no more like tactically good. Let's give them some more. I feel that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think where Mihir is coming from is also I can understand, right? Like in football, like a manager, obviously, the captain has nothing to do with picking 11 in football, but the manager who picks 11 at the start thinks, okay, so this is the 11 I need for me to win this match. But 45 minutes down the line, he may have realized, okay, tactically, this is not working, right? I mean, we don't have a problem with that in football, right? It's a very natural thing for us in football. So I'm saying it might not be too unnatural if it actually happens. But yeah, I'm having a little bit of difficulty as well to see how that will work out. I kind of agree with you there.
Well, we started with Rishabh Pant, and that was the agenda for the day today, and we've deviated in something totally different, but also extremely interesting because that's a substitution in cricket is a topic that has been on my mind for a very long time. I've never been able to wrap my head around it. But before we call it a day, guys, any instances of such bravado that come close to that you think of? I was reading this morning, a column by Simon Wilde, the British writer, and he had a very nice anecdote about Dennis Compton way back in 1948, incidentally at Old Trafford, where England were playing Australia, and he took a blow on his left eye from a Leyland wall bouncer. He got some stitches, had a large glass of whiskey, and returned to score an unbeaten 145. So talk about bravado. I think this story is right up there. Are there any stories that you guys can think of?
The one that is close to my heart is Kumble walking out with that broken jaw. Obviously, a broken jaw doesn't impact bowling. I mean, it's not like he uses his jaw to bowl. But yeah, that the fact that you could see that on the field with his, the whole bandage around him, around his face, holding it together and him still coming out to bowl is something that I would never, that image I would never forget, I think. Yeah.
Venkat?
Also, who will forget the Sydney test in 2021? Yeah, like seriously, Hanuma Vihari batting on one leg. You see, there are like a lot of instances of hamstring, but with the broken thing, we've heard about even Malcolm Marshall coming out with a broken hand and just batting with one hand in a test match, right? There are like a lot of such instances, but that's why it's like test cricket is like when it almost like it is ultimate bravado, but it also shows the players how much they want to give their everything. Vihari, we have seen Vihari do it in Ranji Trophy. It's quite fascinating, isn't it? Like you think that okay, guys, enough. These guys can't do it, but they want to like give another fight. Even if you have your arm broken, they are up for a fight. They are ready to bat with one hand. I mean, I seriously that sight of Graham Smith walking down the stairs. South Africa had already won the series by then, but still in the third test of the Sydney, he just walked out. That showed everything about South African team. And the spirit they wanted to like send the message to Australia, listen, like go home without losing a test match. That was like, and it was not a bad Australian team. It was a very good Australian team. And it wasn't we saw in the early 90s and early 2000s, but it's still a good team, which had a very good bowling attack. So you've seen all of it. You've seen like, yes, there are players who aggravated injury as well by showing these bravados, but ultimately it comes down to the players' perseverance and then their determination. I believe they want to listen. This is what I want to do. Let me do it. Allow me to do it. So yeah, it just sends also. It's like makes for a beautiful viewing as well. Yesterday, whatever he has fun didn't score, but the period where he came out and he batted, it was like quite fantastic. There's like a lot of thrills as well as watching from miles away. Right? They showed like how the entire Manchester crowd stood up, uploaded him when he walked in. So he's the biggest entertainer in world cricket today. And Pant doing it would have just like given them, listen, like I'm paid my money to come and watch him play, and this fellow is like walking with a broken hand, broken leg. I mean, it's just you just pinch yourself and see like, okay, like you're blessed to have such cricketers as well who want to put up a show no matter what.
Absolutely.
But these things obviously get branded as nationalism and stuff, but let's not get here. We are like, we have seen it across sports here. We have seen it in tennis, football.
No, let's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, of course. It's a great act. I mean, it's a nice way to end this podcast. Like I said, we were to talk about Pant. We ended up talking about cricket subs. But regardless of whatever we spoke, one thing remains undisputed is Pant is now joins this ranks of injured heroes that have taken the cricket field. Thanks, Venkat, for joining us. Thanks, Vinayak, as always. Thanks to our production team. We will be back with a new episode of Game Time next week. Thanks for listening.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.